Hi all, today we are going to discuss a famous poem. There is a certain slant of light. The poem is prescribed for MA English under University of Calicut. See, the poem was written by the American poet Emily Dickinson. Emily Dickinson was born December 10, 1830, was died on May 15, 1886. She was born in Amherst, Massachusetts, in a prominent family with strong ties to its community. See, it is being regarded as that Dickinson lived much of her life in isolation. She was melancholic and she was living in isolation. And by locals, she was considered even eccentric too. She was considered eccentric. And most of her writings didn't come into light during her life. And her life is little known. And she has been considered one of the most prominent figures in American poetry. She never married, and friendship too was entirely upon correspondence, that is, through letters. She was a prolific writer, and her only publication during her lifetime were 10. Actually, her works numbers nearly 1800 poems and one letter. The poem, There is a Certain Slant of Light, was written in 1861. And it is highly ambiguous. The poem describes the way a light of winter prompts the speaker, reflects on the nature of religion, death and despair. Here, a light compels the writer to think of on the nature of religion, death and despair. See, we must know she is living in isolation. So, she may be facing a kind of psychological problems. So, while we are living in isolation, we are living alone. Some figures, some lights, some changes in light will bring into our mind a kind of heavy weight, a kind of deep thinking and all. Here, this winter sunlight, she is thinking of are in fact part of a message from God. The poem speaks of the nature of despair. She is in desperation. So, the poem can be seen as a kind of meditation on the nature of despair, where it comes, what it feels like, and how it affects the mind, soul, and even the landscape. See, light usually brings into our mind some positive images. But here, the light is being appeared as unhappy and constricted. This light makes her, the poet, feels down, melancholic, and gloomy and brooding over the nature of religion and all. The poem also speaks of religion and nature. See, just like despair itself, the poem evokes some religious thoughts and all. The poem also brings into mind the truth and transformation. See, as we have already mentioned, the poem is a bit ambiguous. And why this light feels so oppressive has kinds of interpretation. Anyway, it is strange and kind of sensation. However, the heaviness she feels, the weight she feels while watching this light is transformative and shaking up all the meaning inside the speaker's mind. So, we are going to discuss the poem in detail. There is a certain slant of light by Emily Dickinson. There is a certain slant of light, winter afternoons, that oppresses like the heft of cathedral tunes. The poet is here watching a slant of light, a certain slant of light that comes winter afternoons. See, she is watching a certain kind of light that comes slant winter afternoons. While watching this light, she feels like oppressed. She says that oppresses. And she is comparing this experience with the heft of cathedral tunes. With the heft, the heaviness she feels while hearing the organ music that is being played in church, big churches. So she is speaking that the certain slant of light has a kind of heaviness that oppresses. The heaviness is like the heaviness of organ music that is being played in big churches. Heavenly heart it gives us. We can find no scar, but internal difference where the meanings are. See, the feeling while watching this certain slant of light is that she is feeling a heavenly heart. So she says that, the poet says that the certain slant of light gives the people a divine pain. As it is divine pain, we can find no scar. There will be no visible mark of this pain. So like the God, we cannot find him. Just like the certain slant of light leaves in us a heavenly heart which has no visible marks. But what we can get is that internal difference. See, we can experience the internal difference while watching this certain slant of light. What difference is? Where the meanings are. Where the meanings of the things are. The inner confusion lies where? In the mind. Where the internal difference we feel. Okay. Then next, none may teach it any. It is the sealed despair, an imperial affliction sent us off the air. None can teach the experience we get while watching the slant of light. Anyone can. It is sealed despair. It is mere despair. It is a mere symbol of despair. No one can teach other people this feeling. We have nothing to learn of it. Anything cannot be taught by this. It is the mark of despair. It is the signal of despair. It is an imperial affliction sent us of the air. It is the imperial punishment. Punishment sent by the emperor sent us through air. So we cannot see, we cannot get any physical difference while having this certain experience. When it comes, the landscape listens, shadows hold their breath. When it goes, it is like the distance on the look of death. When this feeling comes, the landscape keep quiet and listens. Shadows hold their breath. Shadows also are holding their breath. See, there we can see a change in the nature. See, when there is a certain slant of light, there can be seen a change in the nature. The landscape is keeping quiet and listens. Even shadows are holding their breath. When it goes, it is like the distance on the look of death. When the feeling is away, when there is no such feeling, one feels as distant as the look in the eye of dead body. One feels as distant as the look in the eye of dead body. Okay, thank you.